Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Randy Sands and the Mediumship Crew. Um, we have the rest of the crew here. Leanne, would you like to raise your hand, say hi?
Hello.
Michelle, would you like to raise your hand, say hi? AKA Jack, for those of you that hear us call her by both names.
Hmm.
And we also have all of our other lovely guests that we're blessed to have joining us for their input and the personal interchange. Um, for those of you that are not aware, we also have our YouTube channel, which you'll find under Randy Sands, under my name. And it's actually supposed to be Randy Sands and the Mediumship Crew, by the way. And if you like the spiritual content here, we encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell so that you keep updated on any new content that we come out with. At the end, we will start putting up information for contact, whether it's we have a special guest or what have you. So always look for that at the end. And tonight we're going to discuss the topic of how to recognize when spirit's with you and caring for you. So this was something that was kind of out of our normal scheduled topics, because Leanne had come to me. She had had some people that had reached out to her that were struggling a little bit. And I thought it was a really good and valid point. So we decided to bring some life into it and go out of order a little bit. So, how to know spirits with you and they're caring for you? Well, I would say that probably one of the biggest ways is faith. You know, faith is always the most important. And I know that's easy to say, and it's not always easy to do. Um, but the reality is that we've all gotten through our roughest days and our darkest nights. How do I know? We're all still sitting here living and breathing. So our track record's 100%. And trust, trust and faith. And I know for me, that was a really hard lesson to learn. And I'm not going to tell you that I've learned it 100% because, we're all students for our entire life. But what I realize is that if I turn things over, I can't take them back and worry about them, because then I've not turned it over. If I turn it over, I have to not concern myself with it anymore. Um, so when it comes to knowing that spirit is with you, that's one that a lot of times you have to have faith on, in my opinion. Now, there are ways that spirit lets us know. There's a multitude of ways. A lot of people have always heard that if you find pennies or dimes, that they
Feathers or
put them in
something.
your path,
Hmm.
because it's an easy thing for them to do. Butterflies, dragonflies. I've literally had a group of butterflies come straight at my face and circle my head. Now, that doesn't just happen every day out of the blue. So that's a pretty good indication that spirit was there. Just like we all hear about orbs and pictures. I have wedding pictures where, there were orbs, unexplained orbs in between key people, so it really let you know who it was by where they were located. And, there's always that nagging feeling. Sometimes we actually hear them. You may think somebody called your name and you turn around and nobody's there. And hearing could be both through your physical ear or internally.
Hmm.
But there's a million ways that they let us know they're around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys 3 really good examples that I've had, that all have to do with car accidents. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor for exchange. The only thing we ask is that you just raise your hand if you want to speak, so that we don't talk all over each other. So the first time that I really knew that spirit was inner working for my best good and highest good We're going back a long time. I was getting ready to pull out of a gas station. And I clearly heard, and it wasn't through my physical ears, it was more like a thought. I clearly heard, don't pull out or that truck is going to hit you. And it was a semi truck. And it was so far away. I said, there's no way. I pulled out. The truck hit me. Now, it didn't hurt me. I mean, it hurt my vehicle, but it didn't hurt me. So that was like an aha moment, right? I mean, you're freaked out already. You got hit by the truck, but then the fact that, you know, you heard this right before and you still did it and it happened. So the second one is, a lot of you know that I was also a groomer, and I had a mobile grooming unit. And a few years back, I was going down the freeway, 65, 70 miles an hour, my truck, big mobile grooming unit behind me. And I clearly got, slow down, there's going to be an accident. Okay, you don't want to hear that, right? So I slowed down. Sure enough, within a couple minutes, there was an accident. My truck went headfirst into the concrete center divider, and I walked away fine. A few sore muscles, but I was fine. But my truck and my grooming unit were both completely demolished. And then lastly, was just, what was it, you guys, this over the weekend? When did I leave? Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday, I think it was. My wife and I left in our motorhome, and we were heading up to North Carolina. We were going to go to the Smoky Mountains to get away. And before we left, I started having this nagging feeling, because originally we were going to go somewhere else. And I had this nagging feeling. So I said, you know what? I don't think we need to go there. So we decided on North Carolina, the Smoky Mountains. And I also had a weird feeling. So I took the RV to the tire guy. A couple days before? What was it?
Yeah, less than a week before.
And there was one tire I was concerned with. He said, nope, that tire's fine. You don't need to replace it. So we leave. We get 3 hours from here. We're up around Orlando. And Spirit started nagging me about the tires. And we're on the turnpike. And I said, you know what? The next exit. And all this, I'm having dialogue with myself. The next exit, I'm going to get off and I'm going to check these tires. Well, 12 miles before the next exit, and I had also told Spirit, I'm going to check him at the next exit. Please keep us safe. 12 miles before the next exit, I didn't have one, but two blowouts. One tire blew out the one next to it. At 70 miles an hour, the RV just kind of went, and it's still going. And it took me a split second to realize I had it on cruise control. And it was so loud, there was a highway patrol on the opposite side of the turnpike, which is a ways away. He heard it. He did some kind of high-speed turn and was behind me before I could even stop. So it blew out part of the side of the motorhome, took out the water pump, and what have you. But we were safe. Spirit kind of let me know it was going to happen. And we were able to get the tires fixed and come home. Now, if that's not Spirit working with us and caring for us, I don't know what is. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to open up the floor. And again, please just raise your hand if you'd like to speak. But I'd like to open up the floor and have everybody talk about their experiences.
Well, I'd like to start with, if you don't mind, the question that, you know, a few people that are close to me have lost, you know, some parents and some stuff recently, a husband, and myself as well, you know, with losing my nephew. It's shattering. And, you know, they always ask the question, you know, how do I know that they're around? Obviously the signs and things like that. But I always tell them, they're like, well, how will I know if it's, whether it's your spirit guide or it's just that guttural instinct that I think everybody here can say, yes, you've all been in that situation where you're like, damn it, I knew I should have turned left. I should have turned right, or this or that. And it's learning what that feels like that's what spirit is. That's what spirit is, and how it talks to mediums. That's how, you know, people on the other side talk to you. That's how your spirit guides talk to you, is with that like guttural instinct. You just know the information for the most part. And like I said, a lot of them were asking about like what that feeling is. So I kind of wanted to make sure we hit that a little bit. And if anybody else here feels it differently, um, you know, the signs are different too. I know a lot of people have asked me lately, like, does it have to be a cardinal? Does it have to be a blue jay? It can be the random. With my nephew Tony,
How about
after
his furnace?
exactly, like there's little signs he'll mess with technology, but um, for me specifically, I'll walk into a store. I love crafts and tchotchkes, and right after he died, from December on, like that whole next month, every store I walked into, somebody had changed. Like I'd see the word Tony, like it would be either in the craft section, somebody'd move the letters and it'd say Tony, or you know, there was stockings and they lined up Tony on them. So I kept seeing his name in different places, and I knew darn well, you know, that was him. um it's just, you know, ask for a sign, talk to spirit. I always, you know, they can hear you. um they might be gone from our sight, but they can hear you, and I think that's important for some people to hear. You know, talk to them. If you need to sign, tell them you need to sign. They usually come
Don't
through.
move your keys.
Yeah.
In your nephew's case, when I did that reading, you didn't even know that the furnace was being messed with until the next day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the heat, um, you'll
Mm-hmm.
feel pressure on your bed and there's nobody there when you're
Mm-hmm.
laying down, like somebody sat down. There's a lot of different ways. And I wanted you to interject like that, and I'm glad you did. Thank you. Because
Yeah.
it is a matter of learning what it feels like. And you know, this is one of the things that I teach my students is you have to learn the feeling. You have to learn what it feels like. And then when you have it again, you're like, "Oh, I know what this is."
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the hardest part about the mediumship and everything else, is dividing what you're learning, what you're getting from spirit, and what your brain is trying to interpret or trying to take over. Um, and everybody can do that. It's just a matter of paying attention to it and zoning in on it. I think people would be surprised at how much their loved ones are around them, guiding them, you know, caring for them, watching out for them. They're around all the time. So um, that's why I'm hoping tonight some people get some comfort, you know, from this, that asked us to do this topic. So I'll come off my soapbox.
Yes,
Yes, Michelle.
Jack.
I know for me, like, um, a lot of it has just been like being aware of what's going on around me and what I see and what, and instead of just chalking up to coincidence or, dumb luck or like, getting the front spot at the park at the mall or getting the front
Mm-hmm.
spot at the store. And it's like, well, now I know I don't just go, I just don't ignore it. It's just like, oh, gee, thanks. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And finding feathers and, you know, tons of stuff. I know for a fact that for me, I've had a lot of close calls in vehicles um, that really could have ended up in really bad accidents, and for whatever reason, I swerved at the last minute, or the other person swerved, or whatever, and that's has to be why.
Mm-hmm. Remind me if we ever together that I'm going to drive. Okay.
Yeah, everybody complains about my driving.
Well, Randy mentioned something that struck me once in one of our classes that was kind of on this topic, where you know, a lot of times we'll ask, you know, even if you're not a medium, whatever, you'll ask spirit, like, please give me a sign, show me I'm going in the right direction, show me this. And spirit gives you signs and gives you signs and gives you signs. But if you don't pick up on it and use that information that they give you, maybe you don't even realize that's what you're doing. They will kind of quiet back down. They're not going to keep interjecting. They'll silence themselves a little bit. So sometimes you have to ask them. Don't be afraid to ask for some help and direction.
And don't be afraid to accept it. There's an old
Yes.
joke about a man and his boat was sinking. And he said, "God, please save me." And a boat came by and they said, come on, get in, let us help you. And he said, no, my God's going to save me. I'm okay. And he's praying, God, please save me, please save me. And then another boat comes by and they said, come on, guy, get in here. Let us help you. You're going to drown. Nope, my God's going to save me. Finally, a third boat comes, does the same thing. And the way the joke goes is when the gentleman dies and arrives, he says, God, why didn't you save me? He said, I tried to 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be willing to accept the signs. And that reminds me of one other thing. And then what I want to do is I want to open it for our guests to speak, please.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I had done a reading on a horse. And I told this woman, this horse is leaving signs for you. And it's something you're familiar with, but every time you see it, you're trying to justify it. Well, it could have been this or it could have been that. I said, it's not. It's exactly what it is. And when you accept it, it's going to open up a whole nother world. And finally she did. And she contacted me later and it changed quite a bit for her. So let's open up for our guests to speak a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you on mute? Wait, Tammy was going to speak first. I'll get to you, Sandra, I saw you. Tammy, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say the first time when I was younger and I first started doing healings, all right, I always wanted proof from Spirit that Spirit was working through me. So I would put my hands over the people and concentrate my energy, and then I would feel the pain in my body that they were suffering from. Okay. And it took me a long time to learn how to release that and not to hold on to it, for one. Then as I got further into it, and I still feel the pain when I do readings, but it only lasts a split second. And I always say in and through me and nothing sticks to me, right? This is the thought that I had. But then when I was doing healings, I would actually see purple, I would close my eyes and I'd be in the total darkness and I would see these huge purple puffs. And they would just like zoom away from me and just one right after the other. And I would just keep seeing them until they would stop. And then I knew the healing was done, you know. Then when I do readings, I would close my eyes and all of a sudden I would have rapid eye movement where your eyes blink real quick, you know, and it couldn't control it. But it always reassured me that Spirit was working through me. Then I started getting messages through my mind like it was my own thoughts, but the sentences were all different than I would, you know, how I would phrase my sentences or anything like that.
Different verbiage.
Totally, and sometimes I would get words that I would actually have to look up in the dictionary because I didn't know what they were, right? But now I trust Spirit, so it's not like I need to get all those things, but I still welcome anything that comes through, but I pay attention to everything.
Yes. Yes, Sandra. Oh, you're done, right, Tammy?
Yes.
Were you finished? Okay.
Yes.
No, thank you. Sandra.
Interesting. Well, I've had, like what you were talking about, the feeling of someone sitting on the bed. I felt that, like, and I didn't have any animals at the time, and it felt like something was walking along the bed, and then I could feel a weight on me. And like that happened a few times, and then I would see like shadows, you know, of like my dog who had passed. I would think that I saw him out of the corner of my eye. And dreams, my family comes to me in my dreams. So, you know, I know that they contact me that way.
That's an important thing that you just mentioned too. When you're at rest and you're sleeping, you know, that's when your vibration is most open. We're not distracted by other things. So the dreams usually are truly spirit coming through, you know, and giving you a message. Pay attention to those. Sometimes we can't remember what the dream was about, but the fact that they visited you, you know, while you were sleeping, it's not random. That really is, that means that they are there, they're watching, they're, you know, they're present. So that's a question that gets asked a lot too, is about the dreams. So
And it's very common, very, very common, at least for me when I'm doing readings, for there to be pressure on a bed when somebody's just starting to go to sleep, because you're more open.
mhm.
And I can't tell you how many times they come through and tell me, and sometimes I don't even want to say it because I'm like, really, you guys, again? You know, but yeah, it comes through a lot.
So how do you get that, how do you make that connection, like when you're awake more? If you're open to that, how, I mean, what's the best way to let them get close to you and for you to like open up like that? Is it the meditation?
Well, the first way is to be open to it and to welcome it. The second way, meditation helps. And the third way is classes.
Yep, it really does come down to that learning how you, that gut feeling that you get, that, oh, I knew I should have turned left, turn right, that thing, that feeling that you have right at that moment, you realize you should have paid attention. That's what spirit feels like. And that's how you know, you have to learn to tune into it. So meditation was a very hard thing for me. You know, I've said it 1,000 times, I'm a squirrel in traffic all day long. That's just me. So telling me to sit still and not think about anything is not going to happen. But don't look at it like, sometimes just getting out in nature, standing in your yard, you know, doing a craft, something that just lets you not focus on everything else around you for a few minutes, even for 5 minutes. I tell you what, it was a huge task for me, but now that I do it every day, world of difference, you know, world of difference mentally. And that's what you do. You start to feel calmer, and you can start to really feel, you know, spirit around you a lot more. And pick up the signs too. We're so busy all the time, you know, you're jumping from, you know, kids to this to that or whatever, and you're running all over. It's hard to be like, oh, you know, was that a sign or not? But there are no coincidences, you know. You realize that eventually too. Things happen for a reason. We just might not know what that reason is, but yeah, just slowing down.
You can ask for specific things as a
Mhm.
sign as well. You know,
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Had one.
Sure.
Actually, today my dogs got groomed. Michelle gave my dogs beautiful baths and made them
Yay,
all
Michelle.
pretty. But my little dog was wearing my deceased dog's harness. And so, you know, like basically all day long, I've been thinking about Phoebe and wondering what she thought of him wearing her stuff. But when I sat down to get ready for the Zoom call, whatever, I felt like I kicked something under the coffee table. And I thought it was an animal. I thought I had like brushed against one of the cats. And I look and I accounted instantly for all 3 cats. There were no toys on the floor. And it's like, wow, she just came and just told me a little bit like, yeah, it was all right, but no, not so much. But she was here, and I guess I just know that she knew I was thinking about her all day long, and that was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Absolutely.
You just have to
And
be
if it
open to
was
the signs.
hers and he was wearing it, she'd probably be laughing if it's pink.
It's red,
I'm just joking.
but she was a bigger dog, and he's a chubby dog, and so he had to kind of wear it because his don't fit. So she might have been laughing. Yes.
Anyone else? Yes. You're on mute, honey.
Yeah, I had to find where it was. Sorry.
No, no worries.
You know, it's like how you talk about all the feelings in the bed. Like I know when my mom sits on my bed and I feel that. But now that I've grown so much, it's like when I'm sleeping and they're downloading, I feel them walking around my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it wakes me up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to like being at a stage where I can acknowledge it and not be afraid of it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Anyone else? Okay, so let's change gears for just a bit. So we've talked about how to recognize spirit in certain ways, but what about things like when we're having issues? Let's say we're having financial trouble, because right now a lot of people are. So how do we know and recognize that spirit's working with us? Tammy, you want to try that one?
She's like,
You're on mute, hun. There you go.
Um,
Let me just put you on the spot as another fellow medium.
that's all right. I think as we need things and we ask for them, a lot of people don't think that they can ask for things from spirit, you know? And it's true. If you really feel that you need something, ask, or ask a relative on the other side, or, you know, it's amazing how they can do work through other people and put the right people in your, you know, path to help you out with whatever is troubling you.
One thing
know,
I've
so-
taught my, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done, honey.
No, so I was just going to say, so if you are in a place that you need something, definitely ask them, because it's easier for them to help you from over there than it was for them to help you here on earth, right?
Mhm.
And with that said, they can't help you unless you ask, number one. Number two is what I teach my students, and everybody's got different things, okay? Before I get into what I teach them, also remember one other thing. If somebody was not necessarily the best person or the best behaved person when they were here, when they go to the spirit world, and they do their life review, they almost like get a second chance to try to help make things better if they weren't good to you. So asking them, even if they weren't the greatest to you, is great. And what I tell my students is, you can get these at any dollar store. I take a Sharpie, and I had one here earlier. I will write on these. I will light it. I will put it into, let's say, a metal pot so that I can leave it going and I don't have to worry about it tipping over. And it's a great way to manifest. And I will light that. And my personal feeling is I keep it going for 28 days. As one is burning out, I light the next. But you could even just do one, but just don't think about it again. You asked, you symbolically lit a candle to manifest it, and just know that it's happening. Again, it's the trust and the faith, you know. And again, no matter how bad things get, you've always made it through. Spirit was always there caring for you, and you made it through.
Mm.
One more thing to think about is, I tell them all the time that through the most troubling times comes your most spiritual growth.
Right.
Because when we're comfortable, when we're, let's say, fat and happy, so to speak, content, you know, whatever, you know, saying you want to use, we have no reason to stretch ourselves. Okay. So through turmoil comes our most growth. So if you are at this consciousness level and it's like bricks, and you go from here to here, what worked for you here is pretty much going to work for you here. But if you go from here to here, what worked for you here is in no way going to work for you here. And a lot of times, these troubling times are exactly that. It's Spirit's way of getting you from here to here. And I tell them all the time, the nice thing about it, and I've learned to welcome, these chaotic times, because whenever they come, I get excited. I'm like that crazy person that's like, oh, give it to me, baby. I turn into Rick James, because I know that means more spiritual growth is coming.
That's true.
You know what I'm
He's
saying?
ridiculous.
I'm like, give it to me, baby.
I'm like, give it to Randy.
Yeah,
give it to
because it's
Randy.
coming. It's coming. Bring it.
Give it to
I'm
Randy.
barely getting over one, and I'm like looking forward to the next one,
Oh.
which is kind of a little crazy, but I do, because I want the growth. And that's Spirit's way of getting us from point A to point C or D. Anybody have anything to add?
I say it's Spirit kicking us out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like we don't realize it necessarily, but that's like our spirit school.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
Because we won't go there voluntarily for whatever reason. So Spirit has to bring the problems for us to go to that, human, so to speak, spirit school.
Mhm.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to share on that? Yes.
I was just gonna say,
Oh, sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. It's who's talking?
I
Lynn?
was going
Lynn.
to try to say something,
Oh.
but I don't know.
Go
if
ahead,
I
Lynn.
heard through it, but-
No, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, like right now, I mean, I keep getting a whole lot of anxiety. Like at different times, like I had to turn the news off because I don't even know what they were talking about, like Regis Philbin or something. But all of a sudden, it was just too much, and I couldn't deal. So I mean, when you have those kinds of things, and I have ways to calm down and blah blah blah. It's not like I go crazy, but I feel like there's just so much of it right now, and how do you? What does Spirit want from me? I don't know what else to do. I mean, how do I know what it wants me to grow? I mean, I don't know.
Sometimes in cases like that, because we can all get overwhelmed by that, and I'm sure everybody'd agree. And especially right now, because there's so many different things going on in the world, right? We've got COVID, we've got, all kinds of craziness going on. Sometimes it's about learning how to just step back. It was getting to me. What was it, Jack, last week? Or the week before? I said, it's just getting to be too much. And, it was funny because as soon as I recognized it was getting to be too much, Spirit stepped in and said, Randy, you don't have to care about everything. Oh, well, that's a novel idea. That was and once Spirit said that, and I was like, oh, it hasn't been affecting me the same. I don't know if that'll help you. I hope it does.
Yeah,
And is your question more about like what are you supposed to be learning, or what direction you're supposed to be growing in?
Maybe what direction? I mean, it's like, because I don't know, because I can't do anything about all the COVID deaths, but I think that's what triggered it. They were just talking about 1,000 deaths a day, and it was just like, so it kind of got crazy from there. But
I think I get a little bit where you're coming from, Lynn, because I have major issues with anxiety. I always have. And I guess, I've never been the most religious person in the world either. I just wasn't raised around religion. But the phrase to me, let go, let God, a lot of times I think all the crap that happens sometimes just piling it on, I really think sometimes it's just literally trying to, I almost think the lesson is, even with everything going on, you still have to do you still have to focus on you, slow down, self-care, none of us do enough of that kind of stuff. take a break. I think it's sometimes just focusing on that, not getting wrapped up in so much of everything, which is hard to do. It really is hard to not, get so wrapped up in everything. But I think that's important. I think sometimes that's why we're throwing so much at once.
Yeah, maybe your point about just do me, like maybe just do the normal things. Just maybe that's where I need to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a step back.
And focus there.
Mhm.
Shrink it down, shrink the big picture down to just your immediate.
Right.
Yep. Looking at
Anybody
situations
else?
differently,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yes, sweetheart.
I mean, everybody's anxiety is different and how we look at it. And I feel like as if in my situation that the stronger the anxiety, the more I should step back and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also run into where it's not my place. The anxiety is telling me it's not my place. It's not for me to deal with. And when I take a step back, then so does the anxiety. So maybe that will help somebody. Thank you.
And what I've recently kind of picked up for me, I don't know if it's for everybody because we all work differently, but a lot of us are empaths. And that's why we're all sitting in this room right now, because, birds of a feather tend to flock together. And what I came to realize is I'm seeing it. And sometimes I can't always do something about the big picture, but I can do something about the small picture. So let's say with COVID and the COVID deaths, I can't do much about all those deaths, but what I can do is I can do as much as I can, as best as I can for myself and those around me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like taking care of the controllables.
Right. And just kind of letting go of everything else so that, we don't make ourselves crazy, because it's very easy. Even the most spiritual of us sometimes get out of spiritual alignment. You can be spiritual and you can be angry. You can be spiritual and you can be happy, or you can get, well, my favorite saying, I'm at my highest point of festivity. So you can get there. Okay. You can be spiritual and have a moment of bad behavior. You can get spiritual and do all kinds of things, because we're still having a human experience. And just because somebody has a moment doesn't mean that they're not a spiritual being. It just means that they had a moment where they got out of alignment. And if we use those moments as tools to try to do better tomorrow than we did today, then we're good. It's hard because we can all get out of alignment. I don't care how spiritual somebody is. I don't care how long they've been practicing spiritualism. We're all going to have moments where things are tough. And one second. Hold 1 second. Okay. And like I told them the other night on the video, sometimes that human experience gets more into the forefront than our spiritual selves, and we have to flip the switch. Yes, dear.
I'm just thinking, I'm kind of laughing right now because I've had this exact questioning going on the last few days, where if I'm so spiritual and I have all these tools, then why do I feel a little bit angry about a certain situation? And it's like, okay, what's going on, right? And so, I mean, I even talked to Reverend Mary today. It's like, I'm experiencing some anger, and I'm trying to be on the spiritual path and have my alignment right. Then why is it that I put it in my A Course in Miracles group the other day? Why is it that one little pebble can just knock the whole apple cart out of the water. It's like all spiritual, all everything is just gone. It's like, here I am, like, what's going on? How do I still be a spiritual person and express that anger in a way that's not going to hurt another individual? Because I don't like it to hurt people, but at the same time, you need to be honest and say, look at, da 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 da, whatever it is. But I have been going through this thing where, the anxiety. I'm sure I'm not the only one with the anxiety, and it's like when I start feeling all that coming in. Now, if things are good for me, then I know I'm picking it up elsewhere. It's not mine. And I can say, and if I'm, aligned and okay, I can say, I know this isn't mine. But there are some days when it's all coming in, and it's like, I don't know what's mine and what's not mine. And it's just like flooding in. And I just know that right now, I have been asking those questions, like, how do I still be spiritual and not lash out and hurt someone?
Let me be honest. I don't care how spiritual somebody is. We all have moments where we sit and we go, oh my goodness, what happened to my spiritualism? Why do I feel like it's flown out the window and flew the coop or something? We all have moments. None of us want to hurt somebody, but does it happen? It does. And instead of beating ourselves up and saying, what's wrong with me? I'm not spiritual or what have you. If we can take that and use it as a tool and look at it, take responsibility for what we did. If we have to say, I'm sorry, we say, I'm sorry, if it's called for. And maybe explain where we were coming from so that maybe that person has a little insight and a little understanding and compassion for where we were coming from. And then say, okay, instead of beating myself up about this, I'm going to try to use this as a tool. So going forward, I can do better tomorrow than I did today, or better today than I did yesterday. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Because I used to years ago get caught up in beating myself up over the fact that I had a slip. And that doesn't help it. That makes it worse.
And Eve, you had a great point too about, talking about the empath and not even knowing if your feelings are your own or you've got somebody else's energy on board. I know there's a few people in the class now that are just the very beginning, of all of this stuff, learning, about being an empath and, mediumship and stuff. And that's huge because, you just keep taking on other people's energy and you don't even realize it. And it's very important to, do something symbolic. If you're not sure, when somebody was in one of our classes had told us, run your hands under cold water, moving water, take a shower, anything like that can help release any kind of energy. You know what I mean? Just release some of that other people's energy on you. And I tell you what, that's helped me a lot too. Is just like, oh my gosh, I get overwhelmed and, it sounds silly, but running your hands underneath, really cold water for 30 seconds, I tell you what, it can change your mindset. And just learning how to, to deal with some of that with my anxiety has been huge. So it might be something to try.
If you're feeling like you're overreacting to something, or if you're feeling like you're getting really angry about something, it's also, I know for me, I like to try and look at things and figure out if it's a trigger. And if it's a trigger, why is it a trigger? Where's it coming from?
Yep.
Like, why is it making me so angry? And why do I care so much? And is it legitimate, or is it an issue that I have from who knows where,
Sometimes I feel like it is that overwhelming anxiety, and it's sort of like, why am I so anxious right now? Because, and then I think, okay, well, maybe it's the collective, it's just the combined energies, because it's like, I might be in a place where it's like, I shouldn't be this anxious just right now all of a sudden, but and it's like, how do you like back them off? I mean, the running, hand washing thing is actually kind of cool right now because I come home from being out somewhere and it's like, tell my dogs, I have to wash my hands. But it's not even because they're dirty or I think I touched something that might have COVID on it. It's just sort of like, I need to get them whatever off of me, the anxiety.
Yep. Symbolically, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
And-
interesting, but I didn't even know that was a good thing to do. So that's cool.
Mhm.
Yes, sweetheart.
I was in Zoom the other day with a few other mediums, and I think the fact that we're not being able to be close to our friends and do things that we normally do, that we find that we're almost like paralyzed, right?
Absolutely.
That we have a lot of ideas of what we want to do and what we should do and things like that, but we're not doing anything,
Mhm.
right? And that almost like, and believe me, I'm like a very upbeat, positive person usually, and a lot of people come to me for spiritual guidance and things like that, and I just haven't felt in the groove. I just have, you know, and I'm making myself do a meditation tomorrow, or no, the day after tomorrow, because so many people are asking for it. And like I say, I just haven't felt driven to do it. So I know that I need to do it, you know, because I get a lot from when I do the meditations myself, because I'm just the conduit. So whatever comes through me, I also listen to, and it does lift my spirits. So hopefully it's going to move me out of this space. But like I said, there's a lot of mediums that are the same way. They haven't felt that connection with spirit so strong, you know, because they're more in the human experience than the spiritual experience right now,
Mhm.
and what's going on. So it's tough.
It
Mhm.
is. And I'd seen another hand go up. Yes. Yes, hon. Oh, you're okay. There you
This
are.
is Gail. This is Gail. Regarding the anxiety and the anger that were talked about, when I was learning about meditation, obviously I still am, but when I was learning about meditation initially, one of the things that my teacher said was accept and allow, accept and allow. And I struggled with that. But one thing that happened to me that really brought it home was, I remember that the last time that I was with you guys, I told you that I lost my son when he was 17.
Mhm.
He died in February, and we had him cremated because in my mind it was too cold to put him in the ground. And I was not in a really good place.
Mhm.
So after the cremation, his dad took his cremains. And his dad and I don't get along. We do not talk. It was an ugly marriage and divorce and all of that. I never asked for Brandon's ashes because I was always afraid that his dad would give me a box of dirt because that's the kind of person he is.
Mhm.
I didn't want to have to deal with that. So when my dad passed 7 years ago, and then my mom was getting sicker and sicker, and so I went and bought a headstone for my parents. And while I was there, the headstone guy said that you can put 3 people in a plot if they're cremated. And I was
Right.
like, oh my goodness, look, I could bury Brandon, right? I could have my parents' headstone and I could add Brandon to it. It could be a little bit longer and I could add Brandon to it. And then, you know, I could bury all 3 of them, and my ex-husband has got money. He's very penny pinching, right? And so I called up my son and I said, this is my idea. I want to bury Brandon with my parents, and I would pay for it, and I'm gonna have his name put on the headstone, and I'm gonna pay for that, so your dad doesn't have to pay for anything. And that, can you just tell that to your dad, because we don't talk. And he goes, well, you never asked about seeing Brandon. And so we decided some time ago that Brandon was going to be buried with Grandma Baker. And I was like, what? What? And so that was very traumatic for me.
Absolutely.
And so that you know, his dad and his dad's family decided what to do with, you know, it was Brandon was our child, okay, but they decided, and no one talked to me about it. And Brian said, well, Mom, you never said anything about Brandon. And I didn't, you know, I don't say bad things to my children about their father, right? But I didn't say the things that I told you, that I was afraid if I ever asked for Brandon's ashes, that his father would give me a box of dirt. And so I was very upset, and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And then all of a sudden it hit me. Well, what do I want? I want Brandon to be buried. And so that's still going to happen. If I die first, he'll be buried with me. Brian promised me that. But he'll be buried with his grandparents when his grandmother dies. His grandfather's already dead. And so it'll just be with his dad's parents instead of with my parents. And so I was like, well, why does it have to be my way? So now when I get upset, I think, why does it have to be my way? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be my way. It'll still be okay. It doesn't have to be my way. And so that really helps me with anxiety and anger and whatever. Because if I go, you know, if I boil it all the way down when I get anxious or angry, it's because I want it my way. It's because I want it. I want what I want, right? And, you know, I want to be able to go to Tammy's house for meditation with the group. And I want to be able to hug people. And I want, and I want it to be my way. But it's not going to be my way right now. And
a very strong way of saying that. And you're an amazing woman. I told you this last time. I don't know that I would have be able to be that way. I have a first marriage. They sound like they're probably brothers. So maybe we've been at a family reunion together or something. But you know,
I really thought you looked familiar.
Yeah. You know, breaking it down like that makes so much sense. And looking at it and going, you know what? You know, at the end of the day, that what he did is not right. I mean, you know what I mean? So you're justified in feeling that way. You're justified in everything else 1,000 times over. But yeah, to break it down like that, that makes sense. You know, keep peeling the layers down, like you said, and getting to that root of it. And you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like you said, the biggest thing, I swear to God, the whole time you're talking, I hear it screaming in my head is spirit saying, that's, you know what we do with the body and what we do with those things are for us. They don't need them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I try to keep that in mind too when it comes to dealing with, you know, my nephew and my mom and you know, material things and stuff like that. You know, that's hard. I've had a lot of issues with that kind of stuff too, with family, and it's a whole nother story. But
again, it kind of goes back to controllables, and you know, you can't control other
Exactly.
people,
right.
you know, and what they do and their reactions and responses to things that, you know, you have no control over that kind of stuff. And you can drive yourself crazy trying to control it.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
One thing that I'm going to recommend to everybody is, because of the inability to be around people and to see people and hug people, and a lot of the things that are going on with people are simply because they're missing a lot, is, you know what, do a lot of Zoom, you know, with people you care about. Zoom is free. You don't need to have a subscription like some of us do. Zoom. Put together a group of your friends. I do it with the crew all the time. And it gives you the ability to see the people and to interact with them, which I feel takes away some of the anxiety of not being able to be around people, because it's almost like I'm sitting across the table from them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that can relieve a lot of stress for some people.
You know,
And-
another thing I always recommend as well with especially when you're grieving, you know, Gail, you're going through that. I'm, you know, grieving and trying to work that into my daily life too. And, you know, I know a few other people as well that have reached out to me that have lost some pretty significant people in their lives. I was always told before, journal, write in a diary. That's not my thing. But you know what? I did start to do, and is, you know, Randy pushed me for a long time. I didn't have the best relationship with my mom when she was alive at all.
Mhm.
I loved her. She loved me, never hugged me, never said I love you, but she took care of us, and I knew it deep down. But it didn't make it any easier after she passed, you know, and especially with my mediumship now, learning to trust her to help me with that. But the point of the story is that, you know, I sit down in my journal and I'll write to, like they say, talk to your spirits. Well, how? I'm not gonna talk out loud. It feels stupid. But I'll sit and actually write like letters, like, oh, this is what I did today, or you know what I mean. I'll write something to Tony, like, Tony, you would have thought this was really cool. But it's a place, I feel like you get to the point where as soon as you start doing that and you try to do it like usually the same time of day, it's almost like spirit shows up before, you know what I mean? Like if you were to write a letter to Brandon every day, sit down and say, you know what, this is what's going on. It's your connection. You still have that relationship. It's a different relationship than we had, but you still have it. And I tell you what, they'll start showing up and then they're like, what, you're not going to sit and do it today? You know? And, and you can start to feel that connection again with those people. And I think that that's been huge to me for releasing stress and anxiety, you know? Even just venting about something stupid at the grocery store. I'm writing to my dead grandfather about, you know, somebody pissed me off at the grocery store, but it makes me feel better. You know what I mean? And I think it really helped heal a lot of that grief, you know?
But I'm going to encourage you to talk to them out loud.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. And yes, I agree with what Leanne's saying. And I'm the one that's told her that, but, or at least one of them. Don't let me take all the credit, because I don't mean it like that. But it's very freeing when you can learn to just talk to them, just like I'm talking to you guys. And I do it all the time. And people will look at me and I'll say, I'm having a conference meeting with spirit, you know, we're minding our business, you know. And I mean, I'll drive down the street by myself having a conversation with them. And that's how my mediumship first started, if I have to be honest with you guys. Well, that's when I, you know, because as a kid, we close off. So as a young adult, very young adult, when I started getting back into it, that's how it started, is I'd be driving down the street in my own world and they would pop in and I would hear them. And I knew it was them, even though I didn't want to necessarily believe it. But I said, you know what if? So I started talking to them. I started having conversation. But the one thing that I wanted to mention to you guys is, if you don't have time to meditate, okay, so what? Just sit down and be conscious of your breathing. Do that for a few minutes. It's going to make a big difference. You know, not that I'm saying don't meditate, you know, put it in context. But if things are going on, or if they're, you know, if you don't have time, or there's a lot going on, you can't concentrate, just sit down and focus on your breathing for a few minutes. And don't forget to breathe, because most of us do. Most of us do not walk around breathing the way we're supposed to be walking around breathing. And that alone makes a big difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. Anybody else? Did everybody get to say what they wanted to say, or any experiences they've had?
Yeah, I'll speak up a little bit. I think I've said this before, that what drove me to Lily Dale, spiritualism, psychics, was many losses in a short period of time. And I just wanted to be, there. I just wanted to find a way to get closer to my family members. Because like it started out with my dear friend Hippie. He passed away in 2012, and then not a year went by, and then my mom passed away from cancer, and then not a year went by, my nephew committed suicide, and not a year went by, and then my sister was found deceased. It was like, what is going on? And I was just like really grieving bad, and I just wanted to reach out. And now it's funny that I you know, I hear around the tables, you know, we all have the ability and what have you. What I find is like different little things will happen and I'll know that they're there. Something out of the blue will happen and I'll go, oh, well, Elena, my sister, a butterfly will fly by or something just weird will happen and I'll know that they're there. Many times I'll find myself, I hear my sister in my laughter and I'll be laughing and then all of a sudden I'm hearing her, you know. And it's funny that I shared a video with my family one day and I said, I look like my sister from the back, and everybody else agreed, and it was just too funny. And then I said something about when she laughs, when I laugh, I hear her. So often when I'm feeling, you know, kind of in a weird mood, like sad, which has been happening an awful lot lately, if something can make me laugh, just something stupid, I'll know that it's her coming in to brighten my day or make me feel better. Just hearing myself laugh helps me feel better because I feel like it's her saying, it's okay, Eve, laugh.
Absolutely.
And you know, another thing that thank you, because you just actually, whether you knew it or not, this popped up. You guys will also be able to pinpoint who it is based on what it is. Okay, so let me give you an example. So I have an aunt that was very wealthy. She owned a motel a half a block from the casinos in Lake Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe. Whenever something has to do with money, it's always her. I have another aunt that was the bureau chief of the Department of Justice. Okay. And whenever I'm working on a lost animal case or missing person or a murder case or whatever, guess who comes in? My aunt. Depending on what it is, and spirit comes in and gives you signs, you'll be able to pinpoint who it is if you haven't honed that yet. So when you get a sign, I encourage you to look at what it's regarding so that you can try to pinpoint who it is.
That's so on point. And when Randy first kind of told us that in class, you know, it did make sense to me at first, but then the way it made sense to me in the long run was basically, everybody think about right now, think about your grandfather, and you just feel a certain way when you think about that person, right? Now think about your mom and you feel a little, you know what I mean? Like you can almost sense each person has their own vibration. You don't even realize that's what it is. But then, you know, I can be driving along. I was driving the other day somewhere, a million things going on, and a memory popped in my head about going to this Christmas village thing, but they also did like Easter bunnies, and it was the most random thing in the world. But as soon as like that popped up, I could feel my grandfather's vibration. So I knew it wasn't that wasn't random. He popped that into my head right then. And then you start to realize, like I said, everybody, you have a different feeling, you know, even people that are alive, think about certain people in your life and you just subtly feel a certain different way. And that's the best way to start reading that vibration, that energy. Everybody has their own signature.
And another way is, you're right, everybody has their own signature and they also have their own energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about each person that's graduated and their energy, and if something is going on and you say, okay, what is it I'm feeling? Who is this who does this feel like? I can tell you when my grandmother's standing behind me. I can tell you when one of my aunts or my uncle or you know, whoever it happens to be, because I can feel that energy. And no two people have the same energy. You know, no two people have it. So does
Another-
anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
Another thing to think about too is like when you taught us is, you know, everybody has, like you said with your aunts, everybody has their thing that they did when they were here, you know, or that talent per se that they had when they were here. So, you know, if you're doing something, you can ask that person to help. There's lots of times I ask my dad to help me with stuff when I'm tinkering around because he could fix anything, you know, and stuff. So, you know, that's another way to kind of get in touch with them and kind of get used to feeling them around is to ask them to come help you when you're doing something that maybe they were good at.
You betcha. You betcha. Anyone else? No? All right. Then I think we'll start closing down. So in closing, the crew and I, of course, would like to thank you. We'd like to thank all of the guests that came in and took of their time to join us and to be part of. We really appreciate that, you guys. And again, if you enjoyed this topic or the content, we encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the bell. And if you feel that there's anybody else that may benefit, please feel free to share. You know, that's what this is all about. We do this because we're hoping that, you know, some of the content we put out, people will actually benefit from or find some value in. And also, please let us know if you have any burning desires for topics. We are open to anything under the sun from, you know, as long as it's spiritual, from nutrition to seances and beyond. So any burning desire you have, just, you know, let me know. And again, in the end of these videos, when we have special guests or whatever, we will have their contact info. So start looking for that. If there was a video you saw and you wanted to contact somebody, it always will be at the end. And may you all have a week as amazing as you. And let's all say good night.
Good
Hi, guys.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.